Hello, this is Lromanosky from Calgary, Canada. I'm shooting from the Lug Nuts facility, and what we have here today is a pretty cool truck. This is a 1998 AM General Hummer H1. This vehicle will be going on Bring a Trailer, and this video is a preview, or an auction preview. And we'll do an in-depth video on the vehicle. I'll start by just giving a brief history of the Hummer, very brief. And then, because there's various different engines and configurations, so I'll sort of explain what this Hummer is in relation to the other configurations, engines, and model years. Okay, and then we can do a walk around inside and out. We'll go through some of the special equipment this vehicle has, because it's a little bit unique. It was outfitted as a vehicle for fishing, and it basically spent its life, it only has 10,000 miles from new, and that mileage was done basically going on fishing trips. So it's got some special equipment with a roof rack and a little kitchenette in the back, which is kind of cool. And so we'll go through the special equipment on this car, the optional extras. And then we'll take it for a little bit of a drive and wrap it up. So here we have a 1998 AM General Hummer, known at that time only as the Hummer. After GM purchased the marketing rights in '99, they called it an H1 Hummer, and that name has retroactively been applied to the earlier cars. Okay, so 1998, this is one of about, I think about 11,500 Hummers made. It was made from 1992 to 2006, and usually made in the hundreds or low thousands per year. Okay, this one's dark green on tan leather. It was outfitted from new as a fishing vehicle, bought new in Calgary, Alberta, and used around southern Alberta to go fishing. And it's a one-owner car that has traveled about 10,500 miles. It's been outfitted with a custom roof rack, custom fabricated roof rack, and fly fishing rods, which are lockable. In the compartments above, we have a pull-out rear kitchenette, and that is powered by a dealer-installed 5,000 watt generator that gives you 240 volt and 120 volt outlets in the rear to sort of power whatever you want. They're plug-in to these units, so you could use the 240 or the 120 volt to power something else. You could charge up your electric car if you want to, if you have one of those. Okay, so this car is going on Bring a Trailer, and we've just detailed the car and cleaned it up for sale. It has a bunch of electronics that were also dealer installed in periods, CB radio, VHS, TV, a bunch of other stuff too. So heavy duty brush guard. The options from new were the inflatable tire system from the cabin, so you can inflate and deflate the tires on the move, the heavy duty brush bar, the worn 11,000 pound winch, the leather seats, the heated seats, and I think that's about it. Oh, there's a GPS in the mirror as well. We have a clean Carfax, so no, it's never been involved in an accident or anything else. So all in all, one of the probably lowest mileage, best condition Hummers extant, and the last year that they were sold by AM General before GM took over the franchise. So I wanted to do a little bit of a segment on the Hummer design because I think it really is quite interesting. I mean, clearly, it was not designed as a commuter car. It was a tool to do a job and to win a military contract. And they did make, I don't know, 150,000 of them or something, the vast majority to the military. So what makes this car interesting, or this truck interesting? Well, first of all, what I think is interesting is I've got a Jeep Wrangler and a Range Rover outside. They're all three of these cars are the same height. There's no difference in the height. A Jeep is the same height as this, okay? Yet, if you look at a Jeep and a Range Rover, well, they're two of the most robust off-wheel drive or four-wheel drive off-road vehicles you can get. But the big difference is in the ground clearance. So the Jeep manages, or the Hummer manages to be as high as a Jeep or a Range Rover, but has probably almost close to double the ground clearance. And you know, both a Jeep and a Range Rover have good arrival angles and good departure angles, you know, for a road car, but nothing like the Hummer where it's basically straight up. So the Hummer can ford 30 inches of water, and it can, you know, climb 35-degree slopes, much more capable than anything else. Now, how do they do that? How do they get, you know, the ground clearance, which is, you know, well, almost double, and yet keep the roof height? Okay, so the way they did that is they packaged all of the driveline components in this really wide central tunnel, and then pushed the seats outboard. Okay, so in those other vehicles, you know, you sit on top of those driveline components, and the distance there is, you know, that reduces the ground clearance. Okay, so with this vehicle, that's how they achieved it, and that explains the kind of curious interior layout where you've got the seats really far apart and this massive center tunnel. Okay, and then if you get under the car and you look at it, you know, what you see is all of those mechanical components are then protected by these massive skid plates, including the exhaust. Okay, so there is nothing, the bottom of a Hummer is completely flat. The body is aluminum, but it's protected by these steel sill plates. And if you know, accessorize your Jeep for rock crawling, I mean, you buy skid plates, and you buy rock guards for the sills, and you buy, you know, plates for the suspension, etc. But the Hummer comes with all of that standard. And then, of course, one of the main things is, you know, you don't see the big lump for the differential, and the reason you don't see that is because what it has is portal axles, and so you see the axle, you know, come in up top with this boot, and then there are some straight cut gears to the center of the hub, which is down below. Okay, so that means the differential can sit up in line with the axle, and the hub and the wheels can sit low down, and the differential can be completely guarded with a tubular structure, and there's no obstacle underneath the car. Okay, so the portal axle, there's not too many cars with a portal axle, too many trucks with a portal axle, and it was in fact, I think Ferdinand Porsche, who did a lot of off-road cars, doing vehicles for the military. So that's Ferry Porsche's father, who would have designed many cars from 1900 to you know, around the late 30s. And one of the cars he designed was a version of the Volkswagen for the military, the German military, Kubelwagen, and that car needed to be able to drive at a slow enough speed so that the soldiers walking could keep up to it. And so it had a gear reduction portal axle, increased ground clearance, and low range too. Okay, so there's probably an example of a portal axle before, you know, 1939 or 38 or whenever Porsche designed that car. But I don't know of it. So as far as I know, Ferdinand Porsche is the first designer to design a vehicle with the gear reduction portal axles. Okay, and then of course the Mercedes Unimog picked that up, originally designed as a tractor in the late 40s as well. Okay, so after that, I really think it's only military vehicles. There's something called a G-Wagon 4x4 squared. And that takes the portal axles from a Unimog, sticks them under a G-Wagon, and that's kind of a competitor to the Hummer as well. Okay, so anyway, very, very rare for the road. And these are straight cut gears, so you can kind of hear them when you're coming to the stop, which I think is kind of cool. For 06, they put helical gears in to quieten it down a little bit, but I think it kind of takes away a little bit. Okay, so aside from that, we've got, you can see the engine, which is entirely behind the front axle line. So you can call this car a front mid-engine car, or a truck. Keep calling it a car. And then you see the radiator completely out of the way with the air intake in the hood, not on the front grille, at a slant. Well, that's right out of a racing car. It does the same thing for different reasons, but it's the same thing. Okay, so then you've got this big 6.5 liter turbo diesel. You've got the massive air cleaner assembly. You've got the gearbox and transfer case all tucked up in this massive center tunnel, and even the exhaust actually goes through above the wheels and the rear footwell. It's completely, you can see it poking out here, traveling up and over and down. So the low hood line, makes it less of a target. When it was designed for the military, that would have been one consideration. We've got an aluminum body, and we've got all the mechanicals tucked in the center of the car and in between the axles. Okay, so that's really going to help your center of gravity and the handling in really rough terrain, and the ability to drive on steep hills and steep angles and go up and down hills and so on. Okay, so the car is relatively low. All the heavy bits are at the bottom. The upper structure is aluminum. The mechanical components are all tucked away and armored in the center of the vehicle. It has huge ground clearance, and as you would expect, really beefy upper and lower A-arms with big coil springs. Almost no part of the vehicle ahead of the front tires, so I think it can step up a 22-inch curb. I think I read. And anyway, well, you can see why they won the contract for the military. It's designed, for its purpose. I have to say, this is a very good design. Obviously, celebrities used them to drive around LA, and it got criticized a lot. But that's kind of a little bit unfair. The vehicle was never designed for that. They didn't think that when they built it, Schwarzenegger was going to launch onto it and make it a celebrity, celebrity darling, if you will. So, and in context today, well, there's nothing quite like it. It's going to last absolutely forever. The mechanical bits are mostly GM. So, they didn't make a lot of Hummers, like 11,500 or something, but they're kind of off-the-shelf parts. And all in all, I think it's quite a convincing piece, especially if you use it like this person did, as parked in their ranch, touring around lakes in southern Alberta, and used as a fishing vehicle. Okay, so with that, the only other thing I'll mention is that it looks really intimidating to drive. It looks like it would just be, it would be a really anxious time driving the car around. Turns out it isn't. And I was trying to think about why that was. And when I was driving the car, I just well, it's actually a lot easier to drive than it looks. And I think the reason is this, you sit right at the edge of the car, and you can see the front corner of the car. And there's no thickness to the door panels, so you sit like really far outboard, and it's like you're almost looking at the front wheel. Well, if you're looking at the front wheel and you can see the front corner of the car, well, then you can place that corner. So as long as you can nail that corner, a foot or 18 inches from the center line of the highway or whatever, the rest of the vehicle is going to be in the right place too. And there's good visibility all around, obviously Obviously, there's windows all around the car, so you can see out of it. And I have never driven a bus, but I think it's probably similar to driving a bus, because that's where you'd place the driver if you designed a bus, on the front corner of the vehicle. And because of that, it's actually not too bad. The mirrors are really big. You know, you're sitting really close to the edge, so your blind spot and everything is actually pretty good. So the steering is kind of ridiculously over assisted and small, so it feels kind of funny, but the efforts is very light, and it's not so bad. Okay, so let's do a walk around with the car with the aim of picking out, any flaws. You'd be hard pressed to find a Hummer in better shape, but for the benefit of somebody buying it sight unseen, I'll go through everything. Cosmetically, that's probably the worst of it. There's a chip in the windshield that has been filled in. The winch rope kinked, and so it was taken off, so it needs a new winch rope. The bodywork is all excellent. I did notice some light scratching. There's a few little marks on the bottom of each sill. Tiny little marks. Okay, so there's that. We have this hand fabricated roof rack that looks like it was powder coated, and looks like it's made of aluminum, and there's a little bit of the powder coating that is flaking off. These look like galvanized hinges, and again, some of the paint is flaking off there. Little bit of light scratching on the bottom of the sill. This is caulking. There's a little bit of paint that has been removed there. Rear cross member is excellent, still shiny. There's no issues there. The aluminum wheels have a little bit of oxidation. That'll polish out. And in fact, we'll spend a little bit of time on that before it goes out. The wheels are probably original to the car. Looking for a date stamp, and I don't see it. But I don't think it's had new tires. There's no evidence of them cracking or anything like that. And I just don't see it. Okay, but let's look at that carefully for any sign of cracking. And there's a little bit of vibration, not too bad. It might go away, it might not go away, and it's not that noticeable. Let's just see here. So there's tires. I wouldn't replace them, but they're probably original to the car. Other than that, I'm hard pressed to find any flaws at all. I think, yeah, there's a few little scratches here from the latch on the hood, and that's about it. So we have one stone chip. We have a couple really fine scratches on the sills. We've got a little bit of paint removed here and there from various, mostly from the accessories. And we have an original vehicle, likely with its original tires. And that's about it. Inside, the carpets and footwell looks good. All the instruments look good. May not have any VHSs to play. On the road test, I'll go test all the CBs and stuff and see if I can get that stuff to work. There's no scratches or rips or tears. You can see tiny little bit of wear on the driver's seat. And you know, that's about it. There's no real flaw to speak of in the inside. So I think I'll probably use the term can't be reasonably faulted given the age and mileage of the car. It's, you know, 25 years old. And you know, the thing looks almost brand new. Okay. Okay, Lromanosky and Dale Walmsley from Calgary, Canada, and we'll do the cold start video on this Hummer H1 6.5 liter turbo diesel. It's sat outside. It hasn't been started in 24 hours. Temperature is around 0 degrees Celsius, so Dale will fire it up and we'll just see what comes out of the exhaust and look at the oil pressure and so forth, the gauges inside, and then we'll go around and just operate all the buttons and controls and make sure everything works, do it, and then do a short drive on the vehicle. Okay, so we'll turn this camera around and we'll do the cold start. Okay, so the ignition on, and then we get the weight, which is the glow plugs, and that takes a few seconds, and it'll go off, and we get a little puff of black smoke. Gauges, good oil pressure, and we can see that it is cold. Do you want to open up the hood and look in? Yeah, we'll do that. We'll open up the hood. Push bar goes up. And it's a diesel engine, everybody. It just had a new injection pump put in, new battery, oil change. I will show you. That's the big 5,000 watt inverter, which powers the 220 electrical service to the rear. And we can put the car on or the truck on a high idle, which you do when you want to do that now? All right, so then we've got some auxiliary controls here, and when we need the power from the generator, we'll do that. And the idle goes up to 1200 RPM or so from about 800. You want to demonstrate the tire pressure controls and so on? It's slightly quieter in here, but not much. Okay, so we have the blower controls here, and all these work. We've got the radio, we've got a CB radio, although we haven't got this to work. It doesn't look like it has a power supply. We have a VHS, and I can't get it to start, and then this fold up screen. So the controls to the screen do work, and that's this here. And it could be that I'm just not doing it properly. I have no idea. And we have a CD changer in there as well. Okay. I wasn't successful in getting the VCR to work or to power up, so I'm not sure if I'm just doing something wrong. And I don't think I've played around with this enough, so the next owner can try to figure this out. And then we've got the audio for the VHS and the screen built in there. Okay, so it's a little bit quieter in here. It's been running for a minute or so. Well, 5 minutes. We've got a little bit of temperature in it. We're idling at the regular idle of about 600 RPM. We've got just over 12 volts and just over about 40 PSI. We can demonstrate the dual fuel tanks here by clicking the main tank, and then we'll see the fuel gauge move. Okay, so that does work. I've run a couple tanks of fuel through this vehicle. We can demonstrate the tire inflation. So the front is green. So if we hit that and then inflate, and then we can watch the green needle move, and we can hear the air compressor coming on. Also, there's a light saying that the inflation pump is on. Okay, so that does work. We can try the rear now. Rear, and then we can see the orange needle move. We've got all of the wash and wipe functions work. Windscreen washers and the squirters and the auxiliary lights and panel lights and so forth. All that works well. I've driven the car, you know, about 200 or 300 miles in various conditions. A little bit more than that, maybe 300 miles, going through 2 tanks of diesel fuel in various conditions and various temperatures and so on. So the drivability is good. Everything in the car works. To our knowledge, there's nothing in the vehicle that doesn't work, with the exception of this CB radio, which I haven't really figured out. And I can't get the VHS to power up. I'm not sure why it doesn't. I've tried. And it might be because I just don't quite understand these controls. Because the screen does light up, and it looks like these controls work. This thing powers up, but I'm not exactly sure the operation of it. The channel up and channel down, I don't know. TV tuner? It may very well have a TV tuner in it. I just don't know. I guess you'd have to. I guess it probably does.
That's what that V-shaped thing up here is.
And that explains, yeah, that would maybe explain the V-shaped thing on the roof. Okay, but we haven't explored that yet. All the windows work. The high and low range works. I did test it out on our acreage, and all of that works properly. It has good heat. The AC blows cool. I don't think there's anything that I'm missing. The truck only has just under 11,000 miles on it, so you'd expect everything to work, but still, you know, it is 20 years old. Looks like we have a bracket there that might have had a phone in it at one time, or maybe a GPS actually. I think that's what used to live there. And I think that's about it. So why don't we put the hood down? I can do that, and we'll take this vehicle for a ride. Okay, so we'll take this for a drive. We're not gonna. Okay, so we'll take this Hummer for a drive. My apologies for not going through the bush with it, which is probably what everybody wants to see. And if I had a spare weekend, I suppose we could go take it fishing somewhere, but it's the wrong season. It's just not possible. So we'll just confine it to a drive that just basically shows that everything works and there's no funny noises and the engine has good drivability, etc. So we'll just go through. Maybe I suppose that everybody's going to want to know is whether the transmission transfer case, all that sort of stuff works properly. And so let's just go demonstrate that. We've got a 4-speed GM transmission. Car's been idling for about maybe 10 minutes now. We've got 160 degrees of temperature in it. The 6.5 liter turbo diesel, I would say, is adequate. It certainly moves the vehicle around with traffic. I mean, it's too big and heavy to be fast, but it's not slow either. Obviously, it's got, what would it have? Something like 400 pound-feet of torque and almost no RPM. So it's good acceleration, shifts well, shifts crisply, brakes good, brakes well. It's got, you can feel a little bit of sway from the portal axles, because there's straight cut gears in this car, not the helically ground gear set in the last year of the Hummer, and so there's a little bit of a fore-aft movement when it's stationary, but that's just kind of the charm of the vehicle. So it goes and stops, stops in a straight line. There's no issues there. You can hear the turbocharger come in, hear the whine, accelerates nicely. Okay, so there's no issues with any of that. You can hear a little bit of whine from the portal axles, and that, again, that's straight cut gears, and that is normal. Signal lights, headlights, high beams, low beams. I've tried all of that, and it all works properly. So let's go and engage the low-range transfer box. I won't turn with it on because I'm sure it'll light up the drivetrain. So I'm not going to do that. Okay, so we'll put it neutral, and I will select low range, and here we go, now in gear, low first, and we're not going very fast. Alright, second gear. Gear, and then fourth gear. Okay, so we will put it in neutral, and then high range, and then back in gear, and we are off again. People are wondering what we're doing in the parking lot. Okay, so that is the operation of the low-range gearbox. I suppose we'll take it, just get it up to speed on the highway, freeway, so you can demonstrate it at 80 or 100 kilometers an hour, just to get that out of the way. Save you the hard cornering. We won't try that. Radio works. And front and rear blower also work. It's high. Gaelic music for us.
Perfect.
All right. So we'll just accelerate up to okay or whatever. If we can, somebody let us. Track straight, brake straight, and I've taken it on the highway to Calgary to Millerville a few times at 110. There's no problem with a reasonably quiet cruising speed of 110 kilometers an hour. And no issues with tracking or suspension issues, brake issues, etc. I'm sure it drives exactly the same as a brand new Hummer H1 because basically that's what it is. I keep looking for kilometers, but of course it's just in miles. And so accelerate up to here, hit 50 miles an hour, and then I'll brake. And the braking is straight, and I'm confident. Okay. Surprisingly, you know, when I first looked at this, I thought it might have been. I'm just going to turn around on this here. I thought it might have been a handful. I thought it might have been a handful to drive, but I was actually quite surprised with it. First of all, the steering effort is really comically light. Just reversing out of this here. But also, because it's basically square, or at least rectangular, and you're sitting on the front corner, you can place the driver's side wheel really accurately. And because you can place the driver's side wheel accurately, it doesn't take long before you know where the other corners are as well. And so it really isn't too bad. And I guess it's kind of like driving a big bus, and that's why you sit the bus driver at the front corner for the same reasons. But as long as you can peg the front wheel to the center line, you know, you can have the confidence that the rest of the car is in the lane. And actually, it really isn't too bad, and you can see out of it. So it didn't take me long at all to get comfortable driving the car. And it looks like a monster, but on the road, actually, it's really not too bad. It's a little bit wider than, you know, obviously most SUVs, and it's wide because it has the big transmission tunnel, and there's a wide transmission tunnel because all of the driveline, the exhaust, and everything else is tucked up away from the underneath of the vehicle to give a completely flat underbody for ground clearance. So that sort of dictates the design of the car, where the occupants are at each corner, and you have this super wide transmission tunnel. But the reason that is, and if you look at underneath the car, you can see why, and it's because, like I said, everything's really tucked up underneath, and it gives you a completely flat floor. And then when you have the portal axles, then you drop the wheels relative to the axle and get, you know, the maximum overland capability. So, you know, it all makes sense from an engineering point of view. Designed with, you know, obviously it's military purpose in mind, and you know, it makes the vehicle quite unique. It's not just, you know, big for a reason. It's big because it has the lowest overall height. Okay, so you limit its target size, but with a maximum ground clearance. So you sort of sandwich the occupants in a fairly narrow envelope, and to meet those two objectives. The vehicle isn't actually any higher. I had it parked beside a Jeep Wrangler, and it was the same height as the Wrangler. So it all, I think, makes sense from an engineering point of view. And there's very few vehicles that are that, you know, purist. And so I think that goes to the collectability, future collectability of the car. It's not just limited production, but it's a unique piece with a very narrow engineering objectives, which dictate the size and layout of the car. So anyway, it's been kind of fun to drive it around. I hadn't driven one before, but it's kind of grown on me actually. So anyway, it's off to its new owner. It's on Bring a Trailer. We have one other surprise we're going to show you out back, which deserves a little bit of explanation, and we'll show you that right now. So these are kind of a funny roof rack. It's for fly fishing, and so this whole vehicle was built, or at least customized, to go fishing. And that's why it only has 10,000 or 11,000 miles on it, because in 25 years or whatever, because that's all the owners did with the car, is they took it fishing. So it lived on a ranch in the Kananaskis, and it was custom outfitted with these fly fishing rods, and this thing slides out, and what you've got then is the 500 watt generator, 5,000 watt generator, 5 kilowatt generator that powers an inverter and produces 240 and 120 AC power, not unlike what an RV would do. So with the 5 kilowatt generator and the 220, you can then run any household appliance. You can also charge an electric car, which I'm sure would be amusing. Okay, so we have a microwave that slides out, and we power it up, and we also have a grill in there as well. And this thing slides out. So the idea was you get your buddies together, and you get your fishing rods, you load your fishing rods up, you go off-road, find a lake somewhere, catch your fish, and then get back to the Hummer, and then cook lunch. So, of course, then there's room for cutlery. I guess this would be similar to, in England there was a number of companies, Radford I think, that would outfit Aston Martins and Rolls Royces for fox hunting and so on, and they'd have racks for the guns and food for the dogs, or whatever they had back there, and then you'd have a picnic after your fox hunt. So this is the this is the Calgary, Alberta version of a Radford Rolls-Royce or Bentley. It's just not a Rolls-Royce, it's a Hummer. And
pull that whole thing up?
And it's not a Rolls-Royce, it's a Hummer, and there's no gun racks, there's fishing rods, and that's our version of a fox hunt, I suppose. I'm sure you'll have the only one like it. Anyway, it's everybody gets a laugh out of it, and I'm not sure what the next use will be, whether it's fly fishing or tailgate parties or whatever else you want. Rescuing electric vehicles on the side of the road. We'll do all this. Okay, so anyway, it's a pretty special piece. 1998 Hummer, age 1. A bunch of options. You can get on the CB radio, figure out how to work the VCR, I think watch TV, fry your fish, something for everything. Thank you very much, Lromanosky, and Dale Walmsley, Calgary, Canada.